we're going to see if this works this week. Last week we had some technical difficulties with the microphone. About 10 minutes in, I deleted and decided to try doing it a week later. Alright, my name is Lucas Puryear. I'm working on a Patreon campaign. It will involve, as the deliverable will be artwork, but as an aside from that, I'm also working on a tabletop RPG and a couple of novels that relate to the tabletop RPG. What I'm doing with the artwork is that every month I will produce 10 pieces or more of high quality line work at first to give as stock art for the people to back the project. As I reach higher plateaus, I will add more numbers of pictures and as well as do some in color. I found my Wacom tablet cord, so I will have the ability to start doing more of those in digital and as well as the pen and paper that I've been doing. As for the game, anybody who's backing the project gets access to the game at whatever point it's at. I will upload every time I resave so that the newest version is seen at the top of the Patreon activity list, as well as the character sheet, so that people can create their character and actually have a organized way to put it together. The two novels take place within the game world, and I will release a chapter of each of those each month, or I will release 2 chapters of one. I have some pre-written for a little bit of a buffer zone, just like any good webcomic or writer does. And if I decide to write more on one than the other, you'll get 2 chapters of that instead of the other, which hopefully will lead to better writing overall. The activity section of the Patreon, you can comment on things. I actually would like comments to know that what does not work, what does work, and maybe help the books evolve a bit so that the reader actually gets a little bit of what they want, as well as makes me into a better writer for the reader. The game, it's a point-buy system. There are 15 core races. That's a little less if you actually divide it up, but there's 3 types of elves divided upon the typical literary tropes: nature, magic, and technology. There are 2 types of troll. There is the big mountain troll, kind of like the cave troll from Lord of the Rings, or more actually like the mountain trolls from The Hobbit. And then there's the mountain troll, or hog troll, H-A-U-G, T-R-O-L-L. That is like the Billy Goat Scruff. It's short like a dwarf and generally hungry and wants to eat whatever comes across its bridge. They do have a society, so it's not like they're just a monster. They are playable, they fit in, and they're more than just a one-dimensional, I'm going to eat you thing. As far as the artwork, that is the actual deliverable of the Patreon, the main thing. There will be, each 10 pieces will have 4 characters, 4 creatures, and 2 pieces that are miscellaneous. They can be scenery, they can be a character or creature, they can be generally anything. As more people join the Patreon and give input, it will evolve and there will be a bigger variety. So far, some of the requests are more steampunk and Irish Celtic folklore creatures that aren't typically overdone. I have a bit of... May was a big month for me. I'm a little bit behind on the artwork. And I have a Kelpie up, which is a type of water horse spirit that has reversed hooves, that its way of general way of killing the innocent victim is to tempt it to ride on the horse and then dives down in the waves and basically does a crocodile death roll to it. Fun, fun. I'm working on a selkie, which is in general, they're women, they're seals that take off their seal skin and become a woman. Uh, there are male legends of male selkie as well, so it's fun for the whole family. I would like to open this up for questions at this point. You take a look down at the Facebook here and see if anybody's commented here. Nope. Any questions? As for why I'm doing the project, um, it's hard to focus on the creative stuff when bills need to be paid and food needs to be on the table. Uh, Working on trying to find the typical day job thing, but the economy is what it is, and jobs aren't exactly growing on trees. So it'd be kind of interesting. But I'm not just asking for a big chunk of money like I would with a Kickstarter for a print run. This is little bits at a time, and you actually get artwork each month, stories each month, and access to a game that is completely playable. Uh, I hope my mic is holding out to this point because it's about the point last week that it died. Uh, I hope you can hear me. Let's see what can the typical tool that I use is a 0.3 pencil. The inks make the lines a little thicker. Uh, I use Photoshop to clean up to make sure there's not a bunch of scraggly lines everywhere. Checking for questions again. Will any of the artwork be vector images? Uh, yes. But for the most part, right now, I've been saving them as TIFF images, which is what the print industry usually asks for when you're submitting artwork. It can handle a transparent background, uh, but I can take the artwork into Illustrator and use live trace and turn them into vectors if that is what is asked of me. Uh, it's not a bad idea. That the difference between vector and raster is that a vector image can be scaled to any size and not get the jagged lines that a typical JPEG or PNG or any of the Photoshop-based things can do. My favorite game? That's a hard one. If I had to just say my favorite game to play, I play a lot of video games as well as tabletop games, but the game I generally buy every year is the WWE wrestling game. But as far as tabletop games go, the game I had the most fun with, I played lots and lots of D&D 3.5, but the best campaign I ever played was a 7th Sea campaign. It lasted about a year, and only one character died, this guy's, but it was an awesome death, and it it was made worthwhile by having an awesome GM. I played a 7.5 foot Viking that was cursed with acromegaly, but being Renaissance time, they didn't really have disease names for those things, so they just thought he was a giant. And the way that he got it cured was he got in a fight with a kobold giant slayer, and when he yielded, that was considered slaying the giant, which lifted the curse or disease, and so he actually stopped growing at that point. I had actually written a timeline chart knowing a little bit about acromegaly, that how tall he was going to start, and depending on how long the game lasted and how much game time there was, how old he would get and how tall he would be when he died. But that was a pretty fun campaign, and I thought it was an interesting way to turn a disease into a curse for a game. Any more questions? What country am I from? I live in the United States, Dallas, Texas, to be precise. Uh, and then again, the advertisement for my state does say it's like a whole other country. There are some people that kind of want it to be, but I like the United States, so kind of don't want it to be. Not that Texas couldn't be self-sufficient on its own. Any questions about any more questions about the artwork or the novels or the game? I will say that the plot lines for the two novels, uh, because I ended up deleting last week's broadcast, that was never gone over. I think my mic had died by that point. One story is about uh, the it's a Vikingish type story, but it's about the effects that a truly good person has on the world around them, and the people closest to that person actually on an adventure, seeing that firsthand. This, I do not speak Spanish. Uh, I know it's strange. There's lots of people here in Texas that do. I have not had the opportunity to learn that. For any writing stuff that I need Spanish, I have Google Translate. I recently got a app for my phone that I can translate Spanish to English text just by using the camera on my phone. It's called Word Lens, and it's actually free. But I do not speak it. As for the plot to the other novel, it is about a rogue and a troll going on, a human rogue and a troll adventurer type going around trying to advert a troll human war. It's kind of interesting. There's cities in the empire that they live in that accept the monstrous types, trolls, centaurs, all that. And there's some cities that are very xenophobic that will chain up a troll in town square, let the sun come up, and basically have an execution for one if it's found in town. Uh, there is in the story there's an execution scheduled, and well, it turns out that it's the main troll's mother, and if not averted, it's been enough of these incidents that it could start a large-scale troll incursion to that city at night, and that would be bad and could potentially cause chaos in that region. Repeat these words. Uh, okay. It was repeats these words, but I guess you're working on a translation software to get what I'm saying translated to Spanish. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. It's one of those things I probably should have done in high school, but I did not. And my phone is not near here. Just realized, oh, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your first name, but no, hopefully nobody will ask me to take my shirt off next. This is a Q&A, not T&A. You had some interesting questions last week that, because of the deleted video, I don't have archived. Maybe you could ask some of those again this week. Kiva. Wow, that's an interesting way to spell it. I wonder what the etymology of it is, because that's pretty cool. Just make some up? Okay. Okay. My favorite games and how they've influenced my game design. Well, pardon the cough. Let's see. As I said, I played a lot of D&D 3.5 and 3.0. The group kind of transitioned to 3.5 after 3.0. Lots of 7th Sea. Played some Ars Magica, some of the White Wolf games. How they've influenced my game design. Well, I like the simplicity of the math for Dungeons and Dragons. The way you, well, the stats would give you modifiers, and those would add to the dice number. The simple addition and simple subtraction without a lot of multiplication and all that stuff added in, I like that. It's probably why my dice rolling mechanic in my game is 2d10 plus the total of your stat and your skill. Each dice represents stat and skill. As if you do not have the skill, you just roll the one dice for the stat and add the stat number to it. If you have what's called specialization, you actually get to add an extra dice. Each dice, if it rolls 10 on the dice, which it's a d10, so the maximum face on it. If you use other dice types, just remember the maximum face. You get to roll again and add it to it. So each original d10 can be re-rolled up to 4 lucky times of rolling a 10. So it turns into basically a 50-sided dice instead of just a 10-sided dice, but you have to be really lucky. So the original 2d10 is basically rolling up to 100. Where 7th Sea influenced it, I liked the point-by building of the characters and the way different advantages and disadvantages could give you better parts in different areas as well as make you weaker in others. I don't like being able to take contradictory things, so that's one of the rules, is that if you take impoverished, you can't take wealthy at the same time. And kind of a cheesy way to say, I'm broke, so I get all this extra stuff. Now I'm wealthy. A little too much like winning the lottery right before the game starts. Ars Magic, what I really liked from that is you had so many base magic types and so many functions of the magic, and you could mix those up like creato and muto, create shape, or shape animal, sorry. Creature, muto shape, mutation. So you could make an elephant look like a rhino if you want. Just stuff like that. In the game I'm working on, you can mix different magic types to make a new magic type, as long as you've got an ability called Spellcraft, which you can buy that ability again throughout the game. So if you want to create your own new magic, you just keep buying that. Simple things like fire and water, you can blow steam. Air and water, you create ice. Divination and fire, you can see from one fire to the next. Different ways you can mix things up. Some don't have combinations. I guess teleport an animal would be summoning. Um, That's one of the different things. As for the White Wolf games, I kind of mixed the way they did health with the way 7th Sea did health. You have so many body levels, or as 7th Sea would call them, dramatic wounds. Unlike where 7th Sea, you could roll again. You rolled uh, brawn, I believe, to stop it from becoming a dramatic wound and just being hit point damage. I like the White Wolf style where you get so many hits per body level, and uh, but your armor rolls against the weapons that hit you, so your armor can save your life even if you get hit. It doesn't add to your chances of being missed. Your armor can counteract a weapon. I've seen several times where the armor rolled higher than the weapon, which would represent, say, a bump in the armor that deflected a sword, or if it was an arrow shot, it hit just right and flicked off. But that is how my favorite games have influenced this game. Uh, Also, like some of the games, I liked how Palladium had their monster manual. A little bit of it was in their core book. I I'm firmly of the stance that one book should be all you really need to play the game. But splat books are fun, where you have books that add to the setting or add to the system. Just you shouldn't have to lug around 300 pounds of books just to play your character. Uh, any more questions? For those interested in the Patreon based on the writing, I do have a sample of the writing up for free on the Patreon. It is the prologue to one of the two books. It's the one that doesn't actually have a title yet. Uh, my art influences. I have a lot of art influences. I started out before uh, I got into gaming. I thought I might want to do comics. So a lot of the comic art is where I get my influence from. There were all sorts of names. I liked Frazetta, Boris Vallejo, and Julie Bell. I had tons of the trading cards for the Marvel uh, cards that came out in the mid 90s, so I got lots of their artwork. Um, I did like the artwork of guys like Jim Lee in the early 90s and Joe Madureira in the mid-late 90s. I liked how he had more of a fusion of East and West art, where it could be a manga style, but it could also be American comics. You don't know where that line's crossed. Uh, far as inking, I love the inks on the stuff Jim Steranko does. So much that last weekend at Comic Palooza, I had to ask him, where does an artist know that they haven't gone far enough, or where they've gone too far in inking to get to something that looks beautiful on a page? Because I still do use a lot of, well, they're pens, but they have a brush to them, so I can get a good whipping line. I much rather draw on paper than on a computer, even though I do have a tablet that makes that nice and perfectly fine. Some other art influences, yeah, definitely the fantasy art of guys like Frazetta and that. Um, some of the simple Disney animation, some of the Glenn Keane style. Uh, that would be art like Tangled and some of that. I'm really liking some of the 3D digital art, but I really like getting the art books to show all the concepts that came out before they ever popped it into 3D Studio Max and whipped out a really awesome model. It's fun to see how it's fun to see the concept art because you see where the mind of the artist was when they were doing that. Uh, but yeah, as far as modern fantasy art, Todd Lockwood, I love his work. Uh, James Gurney, Dinotopia. When I saw that as a kid, oh my gosh, I was like, this is the most awesome book ever. And I didn't get it till about 20 years later. Still looking for the third one. Uh, I never seem to find it. But he actually makes models and shines the light on them from where the light source would be from so that he gets the light work perfect. Uh, but yeah, I get my art influence from everywhere. Okay. I guess I could also add my writing influences there. Uh, there's a website called I Write Like, uh, and you can really tell your influences when you use it because I always thought that like Edgar Rice Burroughs and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Tolkien were influences on what I wrote. And then I started writing these two novels, and I would take chunks of that and put it in I Write Like, and bam, those names would come up. And so I thought I was in a pretty good place there as far as being able to write like the people that influenced me into liking fantasy and stuff like that in the first place. Um, as far as some little confessions, I write. I play a lot of warriors. I like the Conan style characters, but I've never actually read any of the Robert Howard novels. Shame on me. But I'll remedy that. I played a lot of fighter types in Dungeons and Dragons because there was less math because of the lack of using magic. A lot of book work with playing a mage. Uh, any more questions? I think I'll take this till 7:45, and then I will pop it up on YouTube as for replays. I'm glad my equipment worked this week. We've gotten this far, people can still hear me. The video quality is better. Went out and got a mic that goes into the jack there instead of using an older webcam to try to use the mic on it. Page here. As for why the milestones are where they are for this project, they were the price ranges I thought were feasible to be able to focus that much time on everything to not mess up the quality of the work, so that uh, I could make everybody who does back it believe that the money they spent was worth the money they spent. And some of the higher yield goals, being able to create 10 high quality color images as well as 10 high quality black and white images, is at 1500, is because that's a lot of time on those images. And if the backing is in the right places, I also have month. Let's see. I have here where at certain points people get artwork every 6 months, every 4 months, and every 3 months, which those would have to be spaced out to where it fits. And if I did all of those in the same month, it would get hectic, which is why I've done it as 6. I've limited the backings that get custom commissions to each one of those tiers gets 10 people can back at those. I'm sure most people will be at the lower tiers, which is just fine. The artwork is usable for below $20. The artwork is usable for anything not commercial, GMs, players. Above $20, it's usable for commercial. Uh, the artwork can be used when used for commercial means. It can be used basically up to any point that The artwork itself is what you're reselling. You can't take the artwork and make paper miniatures because that would be just basically reselling the artwork in a different size format. But yeah, mostly free game. The non-commercial use, you can pop the images into Roll20 and use them as counters and whatnot in your online campaigns. Hopefully I'll do enough art that of wide enough variety that more people can use more work. Yeah, even just $1 gets access to the artwork, the novels, and the game. And anybody who's backing at the time when the novels and game come out will actually get not just the playtest copy or the reviewable copy that is standard on the Patreon, but we'll get the actual PDF of the retail release for free. Thank you for your questions tonight. Have a good evening, and I will probably host another one of these later. Thank you.